Welcome, everybody. Once again, it is Friday. That can only mean one thing. It is the crack, and we are back. Crackheads, how are you all? Bit of an old disappointing weekend there last weekend. We gave it the whole college try to whet the appetite for UFC London last week. And as you've probably heard, a lot of people not too happy with how it went. Of course, Sean Brady with a domination of Leon Edwards in the main event. We're going to be talking to Chisanga Malata of The Sun at the very top of the show, all about that. But fear not, we have some more current news to talk about as well. What the hell is going on at 155 pounds? I mean, we've got a fantastic champion there, and we've got two fantastic contenders who both seem to think they're going to fight him. That's Ilia Topuria and, of course, Charles DuBronx Oliveira. But not a lot of people seem to know what's going on. We're going to talk all about that with the great Chuck Mindenhall in a matter of moments. So, yes, we have a lot to talk about. Oh, and not to mention another return from Conor McGregor, perhaps. We heard him speaking at BKFC last night. The presidential run may interfere with him ever fighting again, or is it in fact a reason why he wants to fight again? Some mixed messages there from Le Champ Champ. We're going to talk about it all on the show. Of course, you have the big Mexico City card tomorrow, a massive, massive card for a live crowd, not at the Apex. A lot to be excited about. The boys in the back did a fantastic job of teeing that one up for you yesterday. If you have not checked it out, please do. But let's get on with it. Let's talk about what happened at UFC London. Sifting through the debris, I'd call it at this stage. Let's welcome back Chisanga Malata and Chuck Mindenhall. Lads, how are yous? You know I love yous. It's been a long week since I saw you. Chuck, how are you getting on?
This is a nice trio, man. I kind of like this. I think we should always just bitch about this London card to start every show from now on. Bring in Chisanga, we just bitch about it the whole time. What do you think?
That sounds like a great idea to me.
You have to talk about the card. Can we not just talk about the presidential bid from Conor for about 50 minutes?
All right, that's the crack, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. But cheers. We got to ask you, right? Like, because we weren't there, and usually we'd have a better sense of everything if we were there. We did, of course, watch the card. I don't think any of us are coming at this from the angle of, well, what is everyone talking about? That was magic. Like, it was noticeably flat on the TV. Before we ask you, we do have some tweets to show you here from some of our UK colleagues, the great fight disciples, Nick, Pete, and Adam Catterall. It is Andy today helping us, not on Air Jordan, but here it is from Nick P first. UFC was broken tonight. Very few moments. Tons of decisions and heavy wrestling dominated the octagon. Kavanagh v. Dos Santos, best fight with performance from Shauna, Alexia, and Chris Duncan. Atmosphere was flat. Zero energy in the room all night. And that is from Nick Pete. And let's see what his colleague, Adam Catterall, on the Fight Disciples had to say. I've lost count of the amount of UFC events I've attended and worked on, says Catterall. I can't remember one ever being as lackluster as that. Chisanga, tell me, you were probably in your seat there. You know, they love Chisanga. They give him the best seat in the house. He has he's a big dude, so he starts threatening people to bring him biscuits and sandwiches. I've been that guy before. It's terrifying. So you just get the man what he needs. But Chisanga,
they bring him like plastic sheets so he can catch the blood and it doesn't get on his clothes. They're very nice.
They treat him so well. Chisanga, tell me, are the lads talking bollocks, or was this a bit of a shit show?
It was a bit of a shit show. Although I think the energy to begin with was quite high. People were excited. There were a lot of people in their seats for the prelims. And the first one was obviously Kay Fernandez against Guram Kutateladze. Listen to that pronunciation, Jordan. Yeah,
we'll catch that in editing.
Yeah, but no, yeah, there were like the arena. I'll probably say was nearly half or three quarters full for the prelims. So people were excited. What you have to remember is that the UFC hadn't been to London for 2 years because obviously they opted to go to Manchester last year for their annual visit to the UK. So there was a lot of excitement, and the Fernandez Kutateladze fight did deliver to a certain bit, as did the Keelan Lochran win over Nathan Fletcher, and well, the back-to-back Irish wins, I should actually say.
Yes.
Showing back from a head kick from hell to submit Puja Tomar, but The energy.
Undefeated in 2025, not for nothing. I know it's a tough time for the UK. I'm just saying, Ireland undefeated in 2025. Go
You
ahead,
always got to
Chis.
slip that in there. Drink. This is a drinking game now.
Are you counting Sean Brady as an Irishman?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Fair enough.
3-0.
2.5-0.
But yeah, there was a bit of energy in the room then. But the Christian Leroy Duncan fight against Andre Puliev, and Puliev just didn't want to engage with Duncan whatsoever. That started to set the tone for the night. Although the Tybura Mick Parkin fight was exciting, and I personally thought Mick Parkin did enough. And then you had the Lorna Cabernet fight against a man who I like to liken to mini Charles Oliveira. Obviously, he's part of the shootbox team, the Diego
Yes.
Lima team, Felipe dos Santos. But then it kind of started there was another lull during the Chris Padilla Jai Harbert fight. Chris Padilla wasn't really, again, engaging. And that fight didn't really kick off until like the last 20, 30 seconds when Jai hurt him with a knee and cut open his eyebrow. In terms of overall buzz and prolonged buzz for I mean, I probably would say this is, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to any of the combatants. I admire them, all of them, but I'd probably say this was the energy-wise in the arena. This is probably the most lackluster since 2017, and UFC London 2017 was the great Jimmy Manuwa against Corey Anderson. We were sat cage side for that, Petesy.
I've scrubbed that one from my memory, I think.
Weren't quite as close back then. I think our bromance started the following summer around the Bellator London / UFC Liverpool time. And you remember that was back to back. We have to go from London up to Liverpool. But anyway, I'm digressing. But yes, I'd probably say that was the most lackluster in terms of fan energy and lack of moments since that card in 2017.
It's kind of crazy, guys. Not that long ago, we were putting together like hotbeds. I did one this year too, and I still included England, I believe. I'd have to look at this, like the hotbeds of where the UFC should go. So it's always a shame when you see like one of the top markets kind of, find like go through an apathetic event, because it does have a lingering effect. You remember like the Montreal events that they used to have, the UFC would go to Montreal fairly frequently, but it was usually a GSP type of thing. But as they kind of went down the stretch, and I remember being there with Ariel, of course he's from there, but it was for the Demetrius Johnson fight, and Quentin Rampage Jackson was like the co-main event. And it was just the crowd, like you're used to these crowds every time you're in Canada that are just this big infectious thing that you knew would be, emanate out to the world, and everybody would be like, dude, they should go there. Remember Dana would be like, we'll come here every single weekend. And it felt like that was the moment that it just kind of, went away. And it is a shame, man, because, I think that when we're looking at some of these cards that have happened recently, and we're talking about the golden era of the UK, like it just feels like it's building and building. This is the first time it didn't feel like it was building. And part of that was a little bit of a smokescreen, right? Because you're looking at the crowd, and then you see, as Pete pointed out in his piece this week, the guys who actually probably are the hopes. If they're on this card, this is a whole different scenario, right? Like if they've got their fights on this card, that's a whole different scenario. And Paddy Pimblett, Tom Aspinall. So there was this weirdness to it, but it was really just, it was just not a, it just didn't feel like a celebration. Usually when they're going into a night like that, the crowd gets behind it. But the Molly McCann thing, man, it was just, I felt like it started to nosedive there. You go into that Carlos Oldberg fight, and it was like dead on arrival, man. Like it was just nothing happened in that fight. And then that set up the really depressing main event for for London. So it just kind of spiraled at some point and never recovered, it seemed to me.
Would you agree with that, Chisanga?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with that notion. I think in UFC London's recent UFC Londons, we've always had like a moment in the prelims that has set the tone. It's almost kind of like MSG. There's always something in the prelims that sets the tone for the rest of the night, and the atmosphere is absolutely electric. And we didn't really have that from a UK perspective. Obviously, Sean O'Bannon came back in emphatic fashion, and then there was the great third round between Nathan Fletcher and the end of the third round between Nathan Fletcher and Keelan Loughran. But there just wasn't that moment that lit the blue touch paper that made the fans that reignited the rabid support and the rabidness of the fans, which we're used to seeing, and which prompted Dana White to do 2 events in 2022. Yeah, it's
Chisanga, can I ask something? Because on this card, when we talked about it, we had you on, we were talking. You come into it and you're like, there's a little bit of like, watch out, this could be one of these types of cards, because we saw, you get Sean Brady involved. We're talking about him having 20 minutes of control time in his 2 previous fights, and you're like, this has the writing of like something that could be very depressing. But did it feel like the sense of foreboding, like within that crowd, the one that showed up on Saturday, did that exist? Because it felt almost like, you got like you're splitting 8s against the 10 on the blackjack table. You're like, that's what I'm supposed to do, but this feels like a bad idea. Like so you buy these tickets at whatever they were, 350 pound, like the cheapest, and that deep down that this could be the result, right? Like I felt like the writing was on the wall here.
Yeah, I think that was the case, especially like when I dash back to the bathroom, as Petesy knows I have to go to the bathroom.
He had 3 lads to carry him, probably. Take me now! And
No,
they wheel him back there.
I have to go multiple times because obviously I consume lots of coffee.
Toilet paper! That's what he's saying.
And just comes up.
Yeah.
And coffee is a diuretic, so obviously I have to numerous time. And the casual fans, you can always tell the casual fans because the conversations that they're having, the sense that Leon could get dominated, I didn't get that from them. They were just like, oh, Leon's going to knock him out, just headshot, dead, and what have you. But the ones that were in the know, especially some of the ones who I spoke to before the weigh-ins and just before when we were queuing up to get our credentials on this Saturday, a lot of them were a bit nervy. They were like, this isn't really the fight that we want for Leon. He's drawn the short straw. And one of the guys mentioned the complete dominance that Sean had over Gilbert. It was Gilbert Burns he fought in his last fight, the previous fight against Kelvin. And a lot of them were worried about the confidence that Leon would have going into this. Obviously, he got well and truly dominated by Bilal bar the final 30 seconds or to a minute of round 5 last July. But yeah, once the tone was kind of set with the lacklusterness and the lack of moments and the lack of results going our way, that fear and concern for Leon, you could just feel it building, and just fans were on edge, and yeah, they weren't as excited. So yeah, it was there, and it really came to the fore. The second round when Sean Brady literally just
blast double
like
double immediately
off.
Like there was zero hesitation. It
was crazy. It's interesting you bring up Leon, and obviously we had conversations about Leon in the lead up to this fight, and we're expecting something big. That didn't happen. And of course Sean Brady, fantastic, just brilliant, just immediately emerges in that title fray. But I think the conversation about Leon is very interesting, because it's not so long ago since I was asking everyone in the UK scene, like, is he the greatest UK fighter of all time? And they'd be like, yeah. Most people are like, yeah. He has more defenses. He has an emphatic win in that title fight. And we've seen a completely different revision of his legacy in the aftermath, which is not completely out of sorts with MMA in general, right? Like we even with Brady on the flip side of this, we're like immediately put him into the title shot, like disregarding Shafkat. I know. And I'm guilty of that too. So listen, no heroes here, but
it's an Etch-a-Sketch every single week. Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah,
it's like
I think we have a clip of Din Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, Andy, speaking about Leon Edwards here, because I think he is a very balanced take, but compared to the rest of the people I've seen, well, definitely compared to the rest of the people I've seen, if we have it, we should roll it now if we can, Andy.
Where does Leon go? What do you do with him now?
It's tough, man, because I don't want this to be disrespectful towards Leon, because I still believe that skill for skill and like his body type and all that, he was a great champion. He's a great fighter. He's still top 5 material, but I just don't think that Leon is in his heart a real true fighter. And I say that like in terms of like Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, like these guys will fight you in a parking lot.
Do you think he's an athlete?
I think he's an athlete, and I think he's a performer. I think he's creative. I think in the gym, he's probably eats up everybody in the gym.
Probably magical.
Yeah, just super magical. I just think when the lights come on and it's time for him to really fight, and I think despite not being a true fighter, he was still that good.
Well, there
Only
you
they could
have
get
it.
by with saying that, man. I mean, we try saying something like that, and then Leon will turn into a fighter and punch me in the nose, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, I think what Din said, like,
Yeah.
of course, Din's very balanced, and that's from the On Paper podcast, I should say, with Anthony Smith. He's doing a great job with that. But I've seen a lot worse, if I'm being honest. I've been seeing people like he never was. This guy was never good. He was the worst champion of all time. Like, we got to remember when we're talking about this golden era, right? Just saying, like, a massive part of it was him winning that fucking belt. So for lads to be just suddenly like, never a good fighter, when just I think last year we're like the greatest UK fighter of all time, that seems like a bit of a pearl clutching statement to make, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are well and truly over the top with the revisionist history of Leon Edwards's legacy at 170 pounds. I saw a multitude of tweets basically saying that he's the worst champion in UFC history or what have you. And I mean, it's just absolutely nonsense. He knocked out the former pound for pound king out cold. Fair enough, he was losing the fight, but obviously he set up that cross head kick. That was not a fluke. It wasn't as if he closed his eyes and just threw a head kick and then it landed and he was completely shocked. He obviously set that kick up strategically, and you can hear the audio of his coach Henry Clemenson and Fabian Edwards calling for it and him listening and him executing. And then obviously he beat the former pound for pound king again, with the aid of a fence grab or two in that rematch fight. I'm not gonna lie and beat about it, but you can't say that he is a fraud or not a true fighter because I mean, if he wasn't a true fighter, he would have basically quit on the stool in the fourth round against Kamaru Usman when his lungs are burning, when the altitude is getting to him, and his coach is giving him the what's what and basically questioning the cojones that he has. Uh, yeah, that disappointed me from Din Tonis, who's not biased in any way, shape, or form when there's that obviously he's part of Sean Brady's team. But yeah, the revisionist history around Leon Edwards is, as you say, it's massive, massive pearl clutching, and we'll need to put some respect in his name because, as you say, arguably the best UK fighter of all time, two title defenses. Obviously, Bisping could only muster the one, and he beat the pound for pound king twice in a row. And obviously, he went, was it 11 fights undefeated? I think it was
13. It was 13,
13.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy
13.
thing about the how do when you call a guy a fraud who had 13 undefeated, I think the one obviously with Bilal was
Yeah.
a no contest, but still you go that what are you saying that they're all frauds because he had to beat frauds then if he's a fraud. It's such madness, man. When he beat Kamaru Usman was the very top. We were having conversations about Usman in the GSP sphere. You
Yes.
know, we were talking about that stuff when he pulled that off. Obviously, it was very like, okay, he earns his nickname. He's Rocky. He gets it very late. Like it's a crazy name, but then he backs it up. I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, man, that feat by itself. We love to talk about Ilia Topuria going through two guys. And that's therefore he kind of, and I know we'll talk about this later, Pizzi, but like this, therefore it puts him above all else because he's done this crazy feat. To me, that was one of the crazy feats that we've seen, beating a guy twice who it was on the verge of feeling invincible at that point. So ridiculous revisionist history, man. And it's kind of offensive after a while, man. It's like, come on, the guy lost some fights. If he's fighting top competition, he took this fight, under weird circumstances too. I know it wasn't like an ideal camp. He was training for a different guy. Cut him some slack on this. I'll wait until the next one before we start to really project where Leon is at this point in his career.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree with what you're saying, the legacy thing, but like he is in dodgy terrain now. Like if he
Yes.
wasn't going into that Sean Brady fight, and I think it's unfair to be like, whatever happens after this title run, is going to completely sabotage, what happened and what we all saw during those times, which is unbelievable. Um, even when you think about it, BJ Penn had a horrific end to his career.
Yeah.
And I know BJ's going through a lot at the moment, but I'm using him as an example because when we talk about the greatest lightweights of all time, we still talk about peak BJ Penn was absolutely unbelievable. So to be suddenly like, because he's lost to two fantastic fighters,
Yeah.
like, oh wow, it's gone. It's absolutely crazy.
You guys think it's because you get like so much turnover in the fan base? Like you get like by
Maybe.
in just these two less fights, there's probably fans that feel like they're diehards right now who've probably seen two of his fights. They were the two losses. They are very vocal about what they've seen, and they don't know it. I mean, I feel like there's always this refreshing, like like this replenished or whatever you want to say fan base. It's always kind of turning over. People come in, dip their toe, and leave. Others become diehards. It's weird, isn't it? Like I feel like I see
Yeah.
this all the time.
Yeah, it is. It is very strange. Do you have any fear, Chisanga, that we are nearing the end of this golden era? Like I know I wrote about it, and again, just look around the cage. Even outside the UFC, you have Dakota Dacheva there,
Yeah, big
who's
time.
absolutely unbelievable. Who I think a lot of people want to see in the UFC. Paddy Pimblett has this massive fight with Michael Chandler. Who could I really think that just catapults him into the title conversation, which we're going to talk about later, which is
Yes.
very messy, and someone's
Yeah.
going to
But
need.
that plays in. Hold
Yeah.
that thought. I mean, there's a lot to that.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, are you worried as a guy who has been covering this sport when it wasn't so big, and then you've watched it like climb Everest to become one of the most talked about sports at certain times in the country? Like we keep referring to March 2022 when Volkov's like going to 8 different countries to get in to fight Tom Aspinall, and it's just a magic event. I can remember ringing you guys. We were on the Ringer MMA show back then. I was calling them guys live, saying like, "This is the best one I've been at. I've been at them all nearly, and this one was absolutely insane." Like, are you starting to worry? Like, shit, if this Tom fight doesn't happen, maybe if Paddy doesn't beat Chandler, ooh, we are up shit's creek without a paddle. Then,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Now you said without a paddle. No, no, I understand the fear and concern. There are obviously peaks and troughs with any sport, and I wouldn't say we're in a trough at the moment, because the narrative around the golden age of UK MMA could change as soon as next week if Lerone Murphy does a job on Josh Emmett in the world famous Apex, a fight that really should have been on this card, but yeah, well,
Such a good
obviously
point.
they need Apex filler, but that's another conversation. And well, Arnold Allen, he doesn't have a fight yet, but if
he's
he
still right there. Yeah, he's
so
still
right
right
there,
there.
I
exactly.
guess
And then you mentioned it there, we've got Paddy Pimblett, who is on the precipice of not just a title shot, but global superstardom. If he was to go out there and take out Michael Chandler in an emphatic fashion, he literally steals all the thunder that Chandler has accumulated since 2021. Yeah, he's got all the makings of a superstar. He's got the look, he's got the Scouse accent, he's brash, he's backed it up so far in the UFC. So if he wins, where I think we're right back up there. And then
Mm.
obviously, if this Tom fight happens with John Jones, then the sport is going to be in a different stratosphere here. And even if Tom loses against John, he's going to become the champion, really, because John will likely walk away from the sport after this fight, I think, unless he's going to fight Poatan, but that depends on whether Big Ank does another number on Big. Who would have thought that Ank Alive holds the key to John Jones
oh
prolonging
my God.
It's
his
crazy.
career? But yeah,
Well,
even if Tom was to lose to John will probably leave, and then Tom is the next best guy there. And then having a champion in any sport is massive, in particular combat sports. But having a heavyweight champion is something completely different. So for the heavyweight champion, especially to come from the small town of Atherton in Wigan, which is just outside of Manchester, Chuck, if you're
Yeah.
wondering,
well, he
yeah,
knows it. He
Yeah,
knows it.
I know it well.
yeah.
They
To
don't
have that.
serve domestic American light beer there apparently because PT turned Tom Aspinall onto that, from what I remember.
That's right. That's correct. But while we're on this, do you have a couple of more minutes? We'll get you out of here in 5, Chiz. Yeah, are you okay
I
for
can, I
5
can,
more?
I can say a few more, just a few more.
Okay. We're just gonna roll this clip of Tom so I can ask you, like, because he came on the Ariel Helwani show. I know all of you guys on the ground were dying to hear about the progress of these negotiations, which you knew were very crucial this week. Here's what he said to Ariel.
We talked everything through. Hunter has always been extremely personable and reasonable with me. I can't say what he's like with other people. I don't know, but with me and my team, he's been nothing but hospitable and fantastic. And we had a fantastic meeting. Everything went amazing. I understand my position now. I understand what the company's doing now. And you got to stay tuned, my friend, because there's some big news coming.
Well, Chiz, where do we think we're sitting here? Like, I mean, it sounds positive, but there's also, you know, we probably wanted a bit more closure here. How are we feeling?
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that this fight is happening. I think, well, Tom was the first one to reveal, and he just did it ever so candidly during his UFC 313 reaction video that John had basically come to terms with the UFC after demanding "fuck you" money. It'll be interesting to see how much he's actually being paid for and whether it's commensurate to the fact that he's arguably the greatest of all time. But Tom wouldn't be. He looked happy. He looked like he was trying to contain the news.
Like he has a promise ring. He's wearing his promise ring.
Yeah, it looked like he was just trying to keep it all in, and so that he didn't say anything and reveal anything. So I'm optimistic this fight is going to happen. It's not going to happen in International Fight Week. That's my opinion. Like, unless they've convinced John to shelve this proposed 6-month plan, which is outrageous to begin with, because you know this is the guy you're going to be fighting. You've known since November. What was it? November.
Yes.
12th, when he fought Stipe. You've known. Yeah. So I think we're probably going to see this fight the fall. That's
and would it be November?
I'm not saying anything, but I'm just, I mean,
it feels like they're kind of gunning towards that. I don't know.
We're nearly going to get a no comment out of Chisanga here. Look.
Yeah, exactly. But while we're on the topic, I'm a big fan of Sting English in New York. That was a great song that Tom came out to.
You should do that on yourself. I think you do a great cover version, to be honest with you.
No, you don't want to hear these vocal cords. I'm more of a Barry White impersonator.
Right, we know we got to let you go here. One final question before we do. Do you think that this will affect the UFC's, which is more often than it is an annual show, the March one? It's ruined every St. Patrick's Day of my life for the vast majority of it. And I'm just wondering, like, do you think this will affect them coming back in March, or will they come back and go harder?
I think they'll come back and go harder. If you can sell the seats in the gods for £250 to £300 a pop, and keep setting record fight night gates each time you're coming back, there's
and
no
have
way
people cheering, no less, when you announce it.
Exactly.
Yeah. We paid a stupid amount of money to be here. Oh.
There's no way in hell that they're going to miss out on that. I think it was like 4.1 million or 4.2 million dollars that they got. There's no way they're going to miss out on that. They would literally, they'll cobble together whatever main event they can, even if it, like, look, we've had Verdun versus Volkov headline UFC London, and it's been sold out. So yeah, the UFC.
They got to get Muhammad Makhachev back on the prelims, man, for these things. That's the key.
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately, he's time for Karate Combat. Oh, he's gone.
I know. I saw that.
Is that official? I saw the teasing of the accolades, and as soon as you saw the 3-time IMF champion, you were like, "Well, we know who it is, right?"
yeah, exactly. Well, Chiz, pleasure as always. You did great work all week, and you always do. We'll probably see you in November in New York.
Yeah.
By the sounds of things.
And this, people, is by no way in any way, shape, or form. Don't clip it off and say that veteran reporters Petesy, Carroll, Chuck Mindenhall, and Chisanga Malata have confirmed the date. Don't do that. All just speculation at this moment in time.
Go ahead and run with it, guys. It's going to be November.
Clip it off right now. You're a legend, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Hope to have you on again. Great to talk to you, man.
Pleasure for having me on, James. I really appreciate it.
Well, there he was. I mean, what a chat it always is with Chiz.
He survived. He survived it. That's good.
He does a great job. I was going to ask you, like, how did you feel about that, Asmal? Before we move on to this 55 thing, like, are you confident, or is there a part of you like, I'd be more confident if I had a date, or he pushed us towards a date or something like that?
I mean, it's always, I've said this before with John Jones, there's always a little bit of a skepticism in terms of, we know it's hard to kind of get on the same page with the UFC and John Jones. We've seen it plenty of times before. And then he's always got things going on, and hopefully we're past those days. Hopefully, like, everything's good with John Jones and his personal life, everything else. But I think it's always a wait and see, man. Like, I want to be optimistic. I do feel like the UFC is putting in its effort to make it happen. And I think if the UFC is committed to making it happen, obviously they're the ones opening the pocketbook. I think that they'll get it done. But I do think it probably ends up, when you look at the cards, the way they'll shake out. This is where I love having Ariel on, because he's always got his ear to the ground. He's talking to the camps behind the scenes and all this. But I think that November would make sense to me, given that time frame and everything else. I know that's a long time, and that's, for poor Tom Aspinall, that's forever, because the guy just wants to get this thing done. But to me, that seems like, John being from upstate New York, coming back to New York always means a big deal to him. I think that's probably where it ends up.
Yeah. I'm more confident than I was. I think the fact that the UFC are having these conversations, they seem to want to make it happen. I know they always did, but really, really hope we get it. But from one total conundrum to another, Chuck. And I think we did flag this one, as soon as Ilia arrived. I think we were all kind of saying, well, there's an Oliveira issue here. I can remember at the time when Ilia announced it, Ariel was kind of saying, well, it kind of feels like they've promised Oliveira this shot.
But there was also kind of like, hey, there's no way he would vacate that title if he wasn't getting a title shot, right?
Exactly, right? Yeah, absolutely. And look, he is, I feel like, the biggest fight you can make right now, if you're Islam Makhachev, is with Ilia Topuria. But a lot of, and as the lads pointed out yesterday, they did a far greater kind of look at the lightweight picture with Gaethje and Arman and all these guys. I've isolated Charles and Ilia because I feel like if it's not either of them, people are going to lose their shit.
Poor Arman.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
yeah.
I agree with you. Like, he has earned it, but that's just not how this game works. Let's be honest. The UFC does not work this way. Before we get going ourselves, I believe we have a video of Charles kind of talking about the situation. I believe Ariel was asking him about, like, a rematch with Arman. Would that appeal to you? And I believe we have that video, Andy, don't we?
One other name I wanted to ask you about, because it seemed like some people thought maybe it would be you and Arman Tsarukyan in a rematch. You fought at UFC 300. Is that a fight that interests you? Would you like to get that one back?
Teve já pessoal mencionando o Arman, que você lutou na UFC 300. Você teria interesse de revisitar essa luta, não?
Não, nesse momento não. Foi como eu te falei. Respeito muito, é um grande lutador, mas eu estou em busca de um título. Então, não adianta a gente querer fazer uma luta que não seja pelo título.
Right. I understand that, but not at this time. Like I said, I respect him. I respect his style, his fighting, but right now I'm seeking the title. That's the fight that I want. I want to fight for the title. That's it.
That seems like a man who, like you just mentioned earlier, has a promise ring, right? Like this, there's a reason why he is not, there's a reason why he's keeping himself on this track. He doesn't seem to want to even express an interest in anyone else. And that would say to me that he definitely believes that this Islam fight is a real possibility, Chuck. Am I reading it wrong?
No, I think you're probably reading it right. But I always kind of wonder, like, when it comes to Charles Oliveira, especially in a situation, like, why? And I'm sure that the UFC has indicated that he's next, but circumstances change. You mentioned, like, it's a business, and they've got big business happening all through this year. I'm not sure that he's the bigger fight. I mean, I think Charles Oliveira, what he's accomplished and what he's become in Brazil is phenomenal. Like, nobody thought he would get this high, but it is a little weird. I mean, you look at it and you're like, well, he has that loss to Arman. In his last 5 fights, he's 3-2. He's already lost to Islam. It's like he's got this. It's not exactly the credentials to say, like, I'm in the pole position here. But yet he is, and I guess he's, and it's almost like in this grandfatherly way, like, legend, let him go, almost in the Dustin Poirier sense when he kind of got boosted into the title shot. I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for the UFC at this point. Like I love Charles Oliveira, but even on the first fight of like this 5, right? Like he misses weight and he's stripped of his title. It's like he comes with his own red flags. If you're punishing a guy like Arman for coming up ill or whatever happened to him, like or getting hurt last minute and saying like, nope, back of the line. I'm not sure why Charles gets the pole position ahead of a guy like Ilia who has that head of steam.
That's a really good point. That is a really good point, and we know that every fighter is not born equal in the eyes of Dana White and the
but
UFC
Charles,
brass.
I will say I think that he has proven now to be the kind of star that the UFC is like, hey man, he's a good draw too. So I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm not saying that he's like an automatic push him to the side in the sense like Bilal or Leon, where they're always like, I don't know, man, But I do think that if you're just looking at it. You're just looking at the logic of it. You're like, I'm not sure that Charles has the best case here.
No, I agree with you. Excuse me. Ilia met the Spanish press yesterday, and the lads talked about this. Obviously, like very strong man quotes. Like, Ilia, like he has the whole thing going on, doesn't he? He's like a fucking Roberto Duran or something back in the day. I'm already the fucking champion. He's telling them, listen. Don't worry about these, lad. It's either him or it's him. I'm the champ. Here's the quote here. Andy's just put it up for us. All my training is really focused on Islam or Charles because I don't see any other opponents. Neither of them seems to dare to fight me. I love this shit, man. It was just like, they asked him about Islam. He's like, he's afraid of me.
When all else fails, chicken,
Yeah. The most bad motherfuckers on the planet.
Yeah.
Guy, he is afraid of me. But I love this stuff. I love how Ilia is coming at this. I do feel
Ilia's juice though has got to be very close, right? Like the Topuria, like taking Topuria's juice would be like pretty close. I'm not saying entirely because we're talking about the best pound for pound guy in the game in Islam. But dude, Topuria's on top of the game too right now. If I'm Charles Oliveira, to me, I'm like, I could be the guy to go shut that down quickly too. I know that that's not an easy task, but that's got to be somewhat tempting, right?
Yeah, that's what doesn't really. It's both guys being like it's this or nothing nearly. Like you feel. Well, I don't feel Ilia saying that, but I do feel as though we're in this situation, and I don't know how many times we've discussed this. How long are we doing shows together? Like 4 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've hit this kind of thing so many times where it's like, if you don't make this fight now, you're gonna regret it. You're going to regret it. And that's, look, there's a lot of mystery. And again, I always bring this up when Rick was comparing the height of Volkanovski and Ilia and then kind of saying like, this is the kind of frame we're going to be looking at against Islam. I think Ilia is class. I think he's absolutely brilliant. But to run the risk of him fighting a Charles and potentially taking this fight away from the fans, the Islam fight, I think that is crazy.
That's a great point. Okay. What you're pointing out is something that's very important in the sense that in the game, this goes back to like Ronda Rousey and some of the ones that we've seen come up. As long as the casual eye can still catch it's a sense of invincibility, it goes a long way. So like you have two guys right now, and I know even in our rankings, both guys sit very high. I think Islam's #1 in the pound for pound, and Topuria's right in there too. I don't know exactly where he's at. I'd have to look.
I think he's up there because Pereira dropped out, right?
But it's very rare, right, for you to be able to put two guys that are consensus in that top space together. It's almost in the John Jones Cormier sense from way back in the day. It felt almost impossible to imagine either guy losing, and I think that's where that's why when you're talking about captivating the imagination, this fight is at its peak because you have a guy. I don't think that what Ilia has done, especially just from Spain, just all the things that we've been talking about, just how he's been celebrated. His victory laps have been sort of epic, but beating guys like the pillars of that division back to back, you're never going to get that circumstance again where he's literally coming on in as hot as he possibly can to the situation. And then Islam, who I think people are craving to get any doubt thrown into the situation, because unfortunately Renato Moicano, as great as we love him as a cult figure in the game, didn't produce that. He didn't give you the sense of like, this is going to be a bad night for Islam, or very well could be. It didn't play out like that. I think that it gives you the thing you're missing. Like if Islam is not a natural, I know he draws, but like if you're saying like charisma wise or like some kind of bravado wise, he's not an A side. Well, you have it. You have the foil. You have all of that. You put this together, dude. It's big business. And I agree with you. People, when you're looking at this, you almost have to think in these ways. What is the one that's going to draw the most interest? And unfortunately for Charles, we have seen him lose. We've seen him come back. His story is way more nuanced to get to this point, right? Like he's had to overcome a lot and just his perseverance. But these aren't the types of things that are just these dynamic headlines. Like when you put the Ilia and Islam together, it doesn't get bigger right now.
Do you think there's any way, like, and I'm only saying this is only occurring to me because we just had the conversation moments ago. Do you think there's any way that Islam is kind of saying, and I wouldn't put this against him if he was, like, if you want me to fight this Topuria guy, I want a few, like, this is a champion v champion fight. I've already done 2 of them for you with Volkanovski. Like, I want a few more quid if you're going to put me in this situation.
Sure.
Like, this is going to be because it's just a strangeness that these 2 lads who could potentially be fighting don't seem to know who's fighting, and we aren't hearing a word from Islam really about it. You know, Islam's making no indication as to who he is fighting next. So I just wonder if there is a kind of an impasse in negotiations here with Islam.
I wonder that too. In a weird way, also. You know, I know that he kind of there was. You have to give him his kudos and talking about Islam for taking that fight with Moicano when that whole fight card could have fallen apart. You know, John Jones back at UFC 151 did not want to fight Chael Sonnen, remember? And then the whole, or what was it, 151? It was one of those. I get the numbers confused now.
You and Ariel had the numbers goes. I never remember this. But you always do this.
But I think it was because it was 25 later, UFC 176 that also had a similar, like, they just didn't happen. They were just scotched, but I'll take it's just fight. Sure, I fight. You have to give Islam his his kudos for doing that. But at the same time, there was a nice calculated risk because I think that he was.
We got a bit of disruption here on Chuck's end. Sorry, mate.
It's a guy that I think he.
Oh no!
Beat that guy.
We just had a bit of an issue there.
Oh, you got me, or
stalled out. You were kind of talking like a robot. I liked it. I was entertained. I don't know how everyone else is feeling about it, but you seem to be back now. Give us an L check.
Are you? Have you got me now?
I think we're just about there.
All right.
We're just syncing up.
You got
me?
Syncing
up here.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Listen, you probably made a fantastic point there.
I probably did. Where was I at?
I don't really know because I kind of got, it was kind of like listening to Daft Punk. You just catch the beat. You're like, do you know what? Human.
My God.
Enjoyed it a lot.
Anyway, my point was I think that it was a calculated risk for Islam to take on Moicano. Okay. So that you give him his flowers, but at the same time, like, it was a calculated risk. But if you look back at what he's done, like his last 5 guys, they've all been featherweights at one point. You know what I mean? Islam, it's not like from his leverage standpoint, like, we got to see him against a guy that's going to throw doubt. I know that Volkanovski did, but it was diminishing returns the second one, all that stuff. I just think it's time for you to get the guy that we want to see him fight.
Yeah, and for his legacy as well, Topuria, as hot as he is now, it's a huge, huge win. I think you're right. I think people will say, well, look, he's just beating all these featherweights. The guy's huge. He's a massive 155er, but that's the one. I will say, would you be pissed off if you're Ilia now? Because you're kind of standing here going like, I thought, is this not the obvious fight to make? And he also said in this meeting with the Spanish press, the Spanish event's not happening. Like, these are things that we're really excited about. Just a few months ago in January, we were like, imagine it. Yeah, it's gonna be Madrid is gonna be magical. Yeah. It's like the new Craic Park all of a sudden. We hear Dave Shaw saying we're not gonna risk it with a roof, like without a roof. As far as I knew, they'd had a roof, and even if they didn't, I believe that there's an arena. Donna Corby told me this because he went to see someone play there, a band play there, of 20,000, like the same size as the O2.
That's what they should do if they're going to go there. Anyway, they don't play. They generally just aren't going to do one of these stadium shows. I don't think it interests them. They want the live experience to be what it is, and that's usually 20,000, right? That's what they want.
So that would be perfect. And as I've mentioned before, they have all these marketing deals with La Liga. La Liga, of course, the home of Real Madrid, Barcelona. That's the league they play in. It just all feels like an open goal. But if I'm Ilia, at the end of the year, you're probably laying this all out like this is gonna be a fucking huge year
Yeah.
for formerly known as El Matador, now La Leyenda, now the legend.
Sure.
After he's a street in Toledo named after him. But like this is a kind of a, I don't know, man. Am I over egging this? Like it feels like a bit of a quite a setback moment we're in right now for Ilia.
It is, and I mean, you look at it from his perspective. I was mostly speaking from the Islam perspective, but if you go to Ilia's perspective, you're like, man, he has a chance to run the greatest 3-fight, streak that we've probably seen in the sport. I would say that it would have to be up there when you're talking about knocking off two guys who'd just owned for 5-6 years the featherweight division, and then coming in and beating the pound for pound to win a title in a different weight class against a guy who has that kind of iron rule that Islam does. That's historic, and I think that would be the kind of catalyst to really make him get over. If he hasn't already, if the casual people aren't talking about him, they would then. I think that from these perspectives, that's a big deal, isn't it? Like for him, like he's got what he's got at stake here is huge, Yeah.
Just from a European perspective, like it's some of the best moments to cover when the UFC or a big event land. Like, I mean, obviously there's the classic 2014, but even like 2022 in London, even though they'd been coming there for donkey's years, that felt like one of those moments where you're just catching lightning in a bottle. Like it was Paddy's kind of coming out party. It was Tom. It was the first time we were all in an arena since the pandemic. It was the fan base had such an important role to play that night too. And when I was speaking to guys in Spain about this, and I was saying like, this is where Ireland was at. Like you guys are right there, and you have the guy now. And if you put it on this event, it's going to explode. These guys who've been working in MMA over there on the regional scene for 10 years, they're suddenly going to be thrown into like mainstream spots. It's a crazy situation.
You've seen it firsthand, baby.
Yeah. I mean, look, they still fucking keep me around here.
Listen, let me bring something up to you. All right, because we touched on this earlier. All right, so we're talking about Charles Oliveira. Like Charles, we're gonna just push Armin aside. We're gonna push all this aside. It's between Charles and Ilia. But Charles, if a kind of trampoline moment or like exists for a guy to go back into contention, and Oliveira beat Chandler, right? That's who he beat. Shouldn't Paddy Pimblett kind of be in the exact same spot then? Like, say he goes right through Michael Chandler. Now, what are we talking about? Because let's say that they do go with Charles Oliveira in that fight. What better thing could you do than Ilia versus Paddy if he gets through Chandler? Like, wouldn't you? Am I crazy? Like, if Chandler is the common math to a contender, and Paddy goes through him, I mean, this could get wild, right? Like, this is nuts.
Look, I'm so glad you said this, Chuck. It was a week we didn't have you on there about a month ago, and I said this exact thing.
Okay.
And Ben Folks, Shaheen Al-Shadi, laughing in my face. Oh. Look at this guy. What an idiot. They're like, oh, shut up, Petesy. You UK and Irish guys. Oh,
is it too fast for Paddy at this point? Come on.
But like, I think I understand the point based on where we're at right now. Okay, if you take the Chandler fight out of the equation, right now where Paddy's at, I understand that that's crazy. But when this guy fights and he wins, shit goes crazy. Like honestly, that night at the co-op live, when he did that to Bobby Green, like Bobby Green isn't a guy that's ever been around the title stakes at lightweight. I know he got bumped up there at one stage. He took a short notice, but when Paddy beat him, it felt like the biggest win of all time. And if he beats Chandler, a guy, even the casual fans, people know Chandler because he was in this McGregor sweepstakes for 2 years. He's the guy he's meant to fight. This will be even bigger. So if you're stuck at a loose end and you're like, we promised Charles this fight, Ilia, would you fight Paddy Pimblett? I think Paddy Pimblett
coming up too. It's like only 10 or what is it? Like 2 weeks away. So
2 weeks. So it's like, no, but it's also from Ilia's point of view, that's a way safer option than having to fight someone like Justin Gaethje, in his mind at least.
Sure.
He's been saying I'd smoke this guy for years, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, they have the bad blood. I'm just saying, man, in the strangeness of our sport, like that is not the craziest thing that could happen. And it's justifiable if Charles Oliveira has earned, going 3-2 in his last 5 fights, but he beats Oliveira, in this kind of close fight, but that, hey, he's definitively punched his ticket back in. There's no reason that Patty can't catapult. That's the word I was looking for earlier, into that spot.
I love your calling back to that yourself. That's brilliant. Yeah, look, it's an interesting situation. It feels like we're in a lot of these situations just waiting for things to happen, but they are very exciting things, so we have to be willing to wait. Disappointed to hear about Spain. I hope they can sort that out. We have an update from Conor McGregor. I believe this is his fourth retirement. I'm not too sure, maybe fifth.
I know he holds the UFC record for retirement, so that's another
record
moment. Yes.
He was at a BKFC press conference last night in Florida, I believe it was. Hollywood, Florida, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a few things to say. Andy, I don't actually know if we have this video or not. Let's see.
Keep
here we
saying
go.
that you're going to fight in bare knuckles. So when is it going to happen?
Yeah, like I said, I've got 2 fights on the contract. I'm in negotiations. Last week, something happened to me. I went to the White House, and my country is in my, my heart bleeds for my country right now. So there's a lot of stuff going on back home. I'm happy with what I've done. There's something else for me that's in my gut right now, and that's kind of where I'm going. So we'll see. Greatness don't rush. Also, greatness does not rush. There was an opportunity or a deal, we'll say, to fight in Alcatraz, only recent. There's an event going on in Alcatraz in, I believe, June. And they came to me, and it wasn't my worth. As a fighter, we've got to know our worth. I hold every pay-per-view record in the book. I hold every gate record in the book. And my comeback will be slated as the greatest comeback, or the biggest, most anticipated comeback of all time. So it has to be right. And right now, Ireland is in my thoughts, and that's where I'm at. It will happen, I'm sure. And it's always great to be here. And there you go.
Goosebumps, Petesy.
Catching lightning in a bottle since 2013. Conor McGregor. So it's an interesting one because he kind of this is a minute-long clip, and thank you very much for that, Andy. It's an interesting one because he kind of suggests, after this meeting in the White House, Ireland's in my heart, and I've got to go home and run for president. But he also then kind of says, yeah, but when I fight, it's gonna be class. A lot of people are he definitively retired today. I was like, did he not a minute later just be like, I can't wait for them to announce me as the president of Ireland as I walk to the ring?
Well, as a politician, he's mastered the art of the double speak, right? He's already kind of telling you 2 things at once.
Yeah, I mean, tell me, I haven't really got to pick your brain on the on this whole adventure. He's managing to reinvent himself more than David Bowie at this stage, and he's only been around for 10 years, 12 years in
Yet he's still just the same obnoxious fellow the whole way. It's just
well, your words, not mine. Your words, not mine. What do you think? I mean, does this seem like a guy who's thinking about fighting to you?
Do we have in this Conor energy reserves? Because I almost feel like we've been through conversations where we swell up and we say, oh, you know what, man, we talk about
he's back in Daft Punk mode.
Books, and then it falls through, and you go through this next weird. What's that?
We had a bit of an internet mess there again. But it's all right. I'm here.
Oh my God, is that on my end? I'm gonna have this looked at. Is it on my end over here? I have no idea.
No, you're good. You're back. You're back.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I don't even know what the hell I was talking about. What were we saying?
Sorry, I was asking you about McGregor. You were talking about we must have endless McGregor.
Oh, because we went through this process, and then we've actually been through the process now, saying I'm suffering from McGregor exhaustion multiple times. Yet it kind of just keeps coming up. He's done a masterful job, I will say, of just kind of keeping the dialogue based around him for a long time. I just don't know how much further he can take it. If he does become your president. God help us, man. I mean,
it's a wild.
And I would say, come over here, but you probably don't want to do that either, man.
It's just me banished immediately, and the first thing, Peter Carroll will be evicted from the island. Me getting cast off on a raft of flames or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean, it's absolutely crazy, dude. It's an insane situation, and I'm I'm kind of annoying people. I was kind of saying this to the lads this week. Like everyone I meet now, like I'm completely on this. I'm like, oh, what do you think about this presidential run for Conor McGregor? And everyone's like, what? Like, I mean, you're talking about it more than anyone, mate. And I'm like, well, that's because I keep getting asked about it, and I feel like I need to have something good to say. Like, but we'll have to see how it plays out, man. I don't know. I mean, on X, he's winning by unanimous decision when it comes to this presidential election. I haven't met as many around here as I've said.
I wish I could like assuage any fears you have and be like, dude, it just can't happen. You know, it's that something else goes into this more than just, you know, pompousness and kind of having power and money and all that stuff. But I can't tell you that because we tried in 2016, we were saying that wouldn't happen. And here we are, you know?
Yeah. You know what? Like it's interesting. You say that because I keep telling people this in Ireland. Like they're like, there's absolutely no chance it can happen. And I remember talking to all you guys back then.
Yeah.
And I can remember like 2015, 2014. It's like, nah, not gonna happen. And then I arrived in New York the day before he came president-elect. You're like, yes, good chances it's actually gonna happen now. So it's I don't really know how to do anything other than just report it as it happens. I think I was speaking to a journalist who covered politics yesterday in Ireland, and he thinks like in the summer we should know if he's got whatever he needs to become a nominee. You needed 20 members of the Oireachtas to sign off on it, or 4 county councils. I think there are about 30 county councils in Ireland. So he definitely has options. I just don't know how he's gonna go about it. Chuck, before we head off here, you had a big article with Joe Pfeiffer, the man we were told to be at one stage.
Yeah, I was thinking of you when we wrote that.
Thank you.
Because you were one of the guys keeping that be Joe Pfeiffer thing alive for a long time.
Does Joe Pfeiffer like the beach Joe Pfeiffer thing? I wonder.
You know what? I thought that he would, and I was a little bit surprised that he didn't. But he was taking it in a very literal way, almost like, you don't want to be me, man, you know? And I'm like, well, of course, you know, it's more of a, and then he kind of corrected himself and he's like, but I know what they mean by it. They mean like, you know, be hungry, be ready to overcome whatever's thrown your way, and, you know, be, you know, alive and like in the moment, all this stuff. But he carries a really big chip on his shoulder. That was the first time I'd actually talked to him, man. Yeah, a little, like, yeah, you know, he was talking about fans. I didn't include a lot of this, but just like the haters he has, and I was like, you have haters? That seems crazy to me, man, because you're one of those guys who's still on the come up. I don't really know, but he was just talking about like when he lost to Hermanson.
That was crazy though. I remember that because the reaction to it was crazy, Chuck, because it felt like everyone was just like, oh, Hermanson.
Yeah.
This guy's terrible. I'm like, he's literally been one of the great European fighters for the last decade.
And he remembers that. Let's just put it that way. Even though he came back and I think he had a first-round knockout in his next fight, like he remembers that. So I think that it's probably a healthy chip on his shoulder that he's carrying, because I think that it kind of fuels him to do more, you know. So it'll be interesting, man. Like Kelvin Gastelum has a way of making guys that are like this look really bad. You know what I mean? Like, and so we'll see if he's able to do it. Then obviously, like, he's got this idea that I could be the first to knock Kelvin Gastelum out. So there's some intrigue. I think it's a fun fight as far as Kelvin Gastelum fights go. This is one of the better ones.
What a way to frame that, Chuck! Unbelievable, mate. Do you know what I was just thinking about there? Because it's Joe Pfeiffer and he's a Philly guy. I was out with all those Philadelphia comics there last week, making an absolute pig of myself. Those boys were very respectful.
Who were you with? Who are you running with? What are you running, dog? Some good ones, or?
Oh man, they were so cool. It was obviously Shane Gillis. Yeah, it was Joe DeRosa, the legendary Joe DeRosa, and Chris O'Connor. Chris O'Connor's in tires with Shane Gillis, and we're with those guys. And what I was gonna say about it is, like, they remind me so much, and I know there's a big Irish populace there, but the Philly guys remind me a lot of Irish people, because when they talk about fighting, they only talk about their guys. Like, they were like, I know, oh, we're going to London tomorrow, and I was like, oh, blah blah blah, and they're like, yeah, Sean Brady, and I was like, yeah, but, you know, and he's like, no, but Sean Brady, and then they were like, and then Joe's the next week, and I was like, this is so funny. They only actually watch fights through the prism of when Philly guys are fighting, which I find very Irish. It's a good way to be, no?
Oh, this is Philadelphia. Remember, back in the 80s, they were throwing snowballs. Can you hear me? You still got me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We had a bit
They
of
were
a-
throwing
we had a bit of a
snowballs with
fight.
batteries. They were throwing snowballs with batteries at Santa Claus. Guy dressed as Santa Claus. So I never forget that. Fans are something different, you know.
Yeah. We did lose you again there, Chuck. I'm not going to lie to you, but I still love you, and I know everybody else still loves you. Check out Chuck Mindenhall's article on Bijo Boyfer. Check out my article on UFC London not being the death knell of UK MMA, but sorry, the golden age of UK MMA, should I say? So that's really all we've got for today. We're going to sort out whatever the issue is there with Chuck, so you can hear him in beautiful, clear HD next week. Please check us out next Friday. Crackheads, we love you. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the fights. We will see you soon. Thank you to Andy. Thank you to Oscar Losep. Thank you to Chisanga Malata. Thank you to you, Chuck Mindenhall. Mwah.
Thank